All right, this is learning how to graph a linear equation but given a table of values. Notice the linear equation has two variables. That means you're going to have multiple answers to this equation, not just one answer. So this is going to be multiple answers to this equation because you could put in different values for x, and when you add 3, you get a unique solution y. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the table, and the first one, if I put in -5 for x, so if I put in -5 plus 3, so if I replace x for -5, -5 plus 3, well, you have a -5 plus 3. Think of it's -5 degrees, and you increase 3 degrees, so it's going to be a -2. Okay? 0, if you put in 0 for x and you add 3, that's going to be 3. If you put in 4 for x and add 3, that's going to be 7. So what's going to happen here is you're going to take these ordered pairs, -5, -2. Now remember, the first number, that x, is telling you to go right or left. It's a -5, so you're going to go -5, -2. That second one's going to tell you to go down. So -5, -2. 0, 3. 0, you're not going right or left at all, but you're going up 3. 4, 7, you're going to the right 4 and up 7. So you have those 3 points. Now this is a linear equation, which means it should form a line. This is where you're going to take your graphing note card, and you are going to line up those points, and you're going to draw a line all the way through the graph, all the way through it, not just through these 3 points. That means all these points on this line are solutions to this ordered pair. So you can pick any of them. You can pick 2, 5. That is a solution to this ordered pair, this equation. Put in 2 for x plus 3, you do get 5. If I said, okay, 6, 1, well, is this point on this line? No. 6 plus 3 does not equal 1. So any point outside or off of that line is not a solution to that equation. So what you're doing here, the whole reason you're graphing, is to represent the solutions to that equation. There's multiple of them. There's many, many of them. Many. And we're going to draw a line and put arrows at the end. Okay? So again, here, you have a -3. Now, that was really being multiplied by 1, because think about a 1 in the front. Well, now you have a negative. So you have a 3 times a -3 plus 1. So a -3 times 3, that's a -9, plus 1, that's a -8. And I want to see, go ahead and do the math right here with it. And so you're going to plot these. 0, if 0's in here, 0 for x, so 3 times 0 plus 1, that's 0 plus 1, and that's 1. 2, 3 times 2 plus 1, that's 6 plus 1, that's 7. So go ahead and do -3, -8, 0, not going left or right at all, but up 1, 2, 7. So when you graph this, if your points do not form a straight line, something's wrong. Either your math is wrong, your computation's wrong, or your graphing's wrong. But your points, every single one of them, every single one of these are linear, so it's going to form a straight line. Okay? Now, they're not all proportional, meaning like this one doesn't even go through the origin. It's not 0, 0, but it's all linear, straight line. So real quick with the multiplication. If you need to put this on the back of your card, do it. But when you have, of course, 2 positives times each other, it's going to be a positive. So it's going to be like a positive, like 15. You don't have to put positive. When you have a negative times a positive, that's going to be a negative. When you have a positive times a negative, that's going to be a negative. And when you have 2 negatives multiplied by each other, it's going to be a positive. So when you have odd amount of negatives, when you're multiplying and dividing, it's going to be negative. Then even amount of negative, there's a negative, that's 2. It's going to be positive. No negatives, it's going to be positive. So just a quick little review there. Now I'm going to jump down. Number 4, be very, very, very careful. This is really saying like the opposite of x. So be careful with this one, because you're really saying the opposite of -3 minus 2. That is really saying there's like a -1 outside of it. So you're saying the opposite of -3 is 3, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So be careful when you do problems like that. You're saying the opposite of 4 minus 2. So you're saying a negative 4 minus 2, and you have a negative 4 minus 2. It's 4 degrees below 0, and it drops 2 more degrees. So you're at a negative 6. 0 I love, because then that's going to be a negative 2. If you put in 0 for x, that term goes away, so it's a negative 2. So be careful with problems like that. And then I want to address your attention before you start working on your own problems, like these, where you can pick any value. Now pay attention though, because you only have this amount of space to graph. So you might want to be careful. You don't want to sit and graph negative 8. So I would pick numbers close to the x-axis or the y-axis. So possibly even like the numbers negative, maybe negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And if they do go off the page, if they get too large and go off the page, or too low, too small, that's okay. You're going to have these other 3 that will work. But you could pick numbers, and I'd probably pick those when it's just like a negative 3 times that. You can pick those. Then I want to point your attention to the fractions right here. These fractions, they're saying 1/2 of negative 4. So 1/2 of negative 4 plus 3. 1/2 of negative 4 is negative 2 plus 3, and negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So notice the numbers that they picked when they had a half. Well, they're all even, so it's easy to take a half of these numbers. So when you get these, like 1/3, I would pick numbers that 3 go into. And I'd pick negatives and positives. So 3 can go into a 6, so I'd pick a negative 6. Maybe negative 3, 0, and 3. And 1/3 of negative 6, multiplying by 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. So that's going to be a negative 2. Because a negative 6 divided by 3 is a negative 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. Okay? If you absolutely need to use a calculator, that's fine. Don't change that to a decimal though. But just get really good about taking 1/3 times negative 6. Okay? Now this one, I would pick, and I went ahead and I don't know if I wrote that in and on your copy. I might have. I don't know. If I just now wrote it. So I would pick numbers that 4 go into evenly to make it easier. So a negative 4, put in a negative 4 over 4 minus 1. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1 minus 1. It's 1 degrees below 0. It drops another, so that's going to be a negative 2. So when you have these fractions, I would pick numbers that go into that number evenly, like 5. 10 might be tough because you don't have 10 here. So you might even just do negative 5, 0, and 5, which I'm okay with you doing 3 points. That's okay if you don't want to do the 4th one. But definitely do at least 3. But pick numbers that go into, like 5 can go into evenly. I would definitely do that. So your goal is to complete this packet today. And you can check with the sub. I did leave an answer key. No matter what numbers you pick, if you do it all correctly, the line will look the same no matter what numbers you pick. Okay? So the line should look the same because you're representing solutions. You're representing solutions to that equation. Now, if you watched this entire video and stayed with me this entire time, would you do this for me? Would you write underneath your name, Happy Thanksgiving? Would you just write that underneath your name so I know when I look at your work on Tuesday that you have stayed with us this entire time? All right, thank you guys, and you have the rest of the time to work, and I do want this finished by tomorrow if you can. Thank you.